everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today we're talking about another new release that is also the second book in a duology, and that is Masquerade of the Heart by Katy Rose Pool. This is the sequel to Garden of the Cursed, which I read earlier this year, or no, I guess it's 2024, so it would have been last year in 2023. I do have a full review of that book, which I will link. Got a beautiful edition of that book in either OwlCrate or Illumicrate. I want to say it was probably OwlCrate. I remember reading that book while I was traveling and just absolutely devouring it. Like, no question about what I was going to be doing on the plane. No, like, should I watch a movie? Should I read for a little bit? It was, I need to finish this book as soon as possible. It was so good, and I was so excited for the sequel to come out. I did get this as an advanced copy on NetGalley, so at the time this video is released, the book either should be out or should be days away from being released. So hopefully this can provide some insight for you if you are looking to get that second book. As I was figuring out like what my thoughts were on the book as I kind of wrapped it up, I realized that I relate to the main character a lot in that she has trouble saying no, and I feel that very much myself. I would say in this book, and also in the first book as well, there's a lot of time spent just kind of putting out fires. Like, she goes to somebody for help. They say, oh, sure, I'll help you if you'll do this for me. And of course she says, yeah, of course, I'll take care of that. And she's just very stretched very thin, trying to make so many people happy. And I totally relate to that 100%. So definitely a relatable main character to look forward if you are one of those people, like somebody who struggles to say no, a bit of a people pleaser. I would say I've gotten a little bit better as I've grown, but definitely still those tendencies for sure. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the story. I'm going to do a very quick recap, just the important things to note from book one, and then we'll get into the plot for book two. So this is the story of Marlow Briggs and also Adrius Falcrest. While it's not a dual point of view story, we do get little snippets into the mind of Adrius. So I would say I don't know that I would classify him as the main character. It's still very much Marlow, but we do get a little more insight into him than any of the other characters. Anyway, Marlow Briggs grew up in Evergarden, not a member of high society, but somebody closely related to high society who still grew up with all of the noble children, was educated with them. However, her mother stops working for the noble that she's working for, and they move out from Evergarden's high society into the marshes, which are basically the slums. At which point Marlow loses all connection with anyone she knew from her previous life. At the beginning of book one, Marlow is about 18 years old, and Adrius Falcrest approaches her because she is a curse breaker, so her job is to find people who are cursed and figure out, you know, who cursed them, what the terms of the curse are, and how she can break it. And so he approaches her with a job. He has been cursed with a compulsion curse, meaning that if somebody gives him an order, he has to do it. As the heir to the Falcrest family, which is one of the most powerful of these 5 noble families, that's incredibly dangerous because who knows what he could do. So he asks for her help and to kind of make sure that she's close by to kind of counter anybody who might try to give him an order. Marlow and Adrius decide that the best way for her to stay close to him, since she's no longer part of this society, would be for them to enter into a fake relationship so that she can be with him at events, at important meetings, and just really make sure that he's not doing anything bad or embarrassing. Throughout the book, Marlow and Adrius kind of rekindle this very small flame that they had previously, even though he was kind of a jerk to her. And they start to figure out that somebody is after the this noble family. she's not sure if it's Adrius's father who's trying to curse him and just make him into an obedient son, or if it's somebody else who cursed Adrius to try to take over the Falcrest family. At the end of the story, we find out that Cormorant, I think I'm saying that right, Cormorant Vale, who is the leader of the Vale family, one of the other 5 families, and also the man that Marlow's mother worked for, is her father. So Vale and her mother had an affair. That's where Marlow came from. And she also notices that he has these weird curse markings on his arm, which leads her to believe that he is the one that cursed Adrius. Adrius is forced to stab his father, and Marlow takes the blame for it. So that's kind of like where the book ends. Her father, Vale, bails her out, and she's now back in Vale Tower, which is where she was initially raised. So that's kind of the key plot points for the first book. Book 2 picks up immediately where we left off. So Marlow is back in Vale Tower. She is still worried about Adrius. She is concerned that now that she knows who cursed him, and knows how easy it is for Vale to get access to Adrius, she is concerned that something else might happen, but there's no way for her to get in contact with him. So while his father is dying, I guess, he's not dead, but he's certainly not getting any better. His sister Amara has kind of taken over as the leader of the Falcrest family, and she will absolutely not let Adrius and Marlow anywhere near each other. So Marlow definitely needs to kind of be sneaky about this. While Marlow is trying to figure out a way to see Adrius, Vale is kind of trying to introduce her into his family. So he has 2 sons, one of which is married to Amara. His second son, Sylvan, lives at home, and then his wife, Elena. So he is introducing Marlow to all of them and trying to get them to accept her as part of the family, which of course they really don't want to. It seems like his wife kind of knew about the affair, knew about Marlow, and is just kind of like, whatever, you know? I don't want this, but here we are. Sylvan, on the other hand, wants Marlow, like, no part of the family at all. Marlow's still trying to find Adrius, and she's also concerned because her best friend, Swift, has not contacted her. So they kind of made a deal in the last book that he was supposed to get to a safe location and contact her as soon as he was there. It's been like 3 or 4 days and she hasn't heard anything. While Marlow is attempting to come up with a plan to speak to Adrius, she meets Gemma, one of Adrius's friends, who kind of says, hey, you know, I don't really know what's going on, but I'll help you out. Like, if you really need to get to talk to him, I can help you out. And so they kind of disguise Marlow when she goes to a ball where she's able to see Adrius. And she finds out, of course, that he plans to find a wife by the end of the year, which I would say, like, so in the first book, right, I said there's this, like, rekindling of this romance between Marlow and Adrius. She is still very much in denial that this is something that she can have. And that's kind of a theme throughout I don't even want to say she self-sabotages, but she kind of does. Like, she wants to be with him, but she knows it's never going to work. So she doesn't even want to indulge in any sort of part of a relationship with him because she knows eventually it's just going to hurt both of them. But she still is hurt by these things. So she hears that he's going to find a wife by the end of the year. That's the plan. That's heartbreaking to her, but she kind of says, like, well, it was inevitable. It was going to happen anyway at some point. So Marlow shows up to this ball disguised. And of course, Adrius notices her immediately. So they have this moment outside where she, you know, he's just happy to see her again. She's concerned about the curse. And I thought this was interesting. He says, oh, the curse is already broken. When you kissed me, that's what did it. And she's like, that seems a little ridiculous that curse was broken with a kiss. Because, you know, that's fairy tale stuff. And he's like, no, that's what did it. I am not forced to do anything anymore. So I just thought it was so funny that, like, my expectation going into this book is that we were going to spend the whole time trying to figure out still how to break this curse, and it's like, I don't know, maybe 50 pages in, it's already broken. So definitely not what I was imagining for the plot, but it was interesting, and it was a cool element, I think. So Amara finds them together, and she says, you know, we made a deal that I wasn't going to press charges or have her executed if you stayed away from her and you married somebody else. And Adrius, you know, is all upset about that, but he is really concerned about Marlow's well-being because everyone still thinks that she killed his father, so he is trying to protect her. Marlow goes out in search of Swift, and she discovers that he has been kidnapped by the Reapers, so she of course goes on this rescue mission to save him, and she is successful in doing that. He comes back to Vale Tower with her, and in all of her little schemes and things that she's doing, Marlow discovers that her mother, who was not an upright citizen, I think is probably the best. She did some shady stuff, but she had Illyrios Grimoire, which is the super powerful book of spells. That's where I believe the compulsion curse came from, and it's kind of like this set of spells that nobody should have because nobody should have that much power. Marlow was under the impression her mother destroyed it, but she finds out that that's not the case, because how else would Vale be able to curse Adrius with the compulsion curse if that was in the grimoire? So she sets out to destroy this grimoire, and in doing so discovers that there's another spell in there that essentially gives the caster control over time and space. And so she's like, I don't know that my dad would do that, but he also made the guy that I like kill his own dad, so like maybe he would. And so Marlow does kind of struggle with that a little bit, because she's, you know, building this relationship with her father that she's really always wanted, but he's also kind of a killer. So there's that. But she decides ultimately nobody should have this amount of power. Things are going to go really poorly if he's able to cast that spell. So we need to destroy the grimoire once and for all. They find Marlow and her like little gang of misfits, which is Adrius, Swift, occasionally her half-brother Sylvan, and Fisher, who's a spellcaster, find what they need to destroy the grimoire, or they at least find the things necessary for the spell. There are a couple of ingredients that they still need to find, like Illyrios' remains. They need like a blade that has tasted the blood of a tyrant or something along those lines, the tears of a killer, and the heart's desire. Now, what's interesting about that is Marlow gave up her heart's desire as a trade off in the first book, and her heart's desire is to be with Adrius, and she gave it away because she knew that that was never possible. Marlow ends up telling this to Adrius, and you know, then they're kind of left with the decision of, do they find somebody else's heart's desire, or is that going to take too much time, or do they both really know that this cannot go anywhere, and so they just use Marlow's? And it's kind of, it sounds like if her heart's desire is used in a spell, that she would just lose all interest in Adrius at all, like gone completely. Marlow's very self-sacrificing, and so she wants to do what's best for everybody, and she's always taking care of other people, which is why she ends up in these situations where she can't really say no. However, it's still her heart's desire, and she's not sure if she wants to completely get rid of that. That's just kind of like a small detail that's in the back of their minds as they're trying to find the rest of these ingredients. So they go to an auction. It's an anonymous auction, so everybody's disguised, and they try to bid on this onyx blade, which has tasted the blood of a tyrant, I believe. They're unsuccessful in getting it, and Marlow is shot with a cursed bullet. So that kind of puts a damper on their plans a little bit. Later on, she's also kidnapped by the Copperhead gang. So not only is Marlow trying to destroy this grimoire and get everything she needs for that, she's also trying to clear her name. And she found a ledger that belonged to her mother that showed all of these sketchy transactions that had happened. So she turns it over to the solicitor thinking, oh, this will, you know, this will kind of help clear my name, and I can definitely at least, you know, maybe they'll have enough information to take down some of the gangs that they'll be like, oh, thank you, Marlow. Like, you're okay. We don't need to do this anymore. That's not what happens. The solicitor is very much looking out for his own interest because his name is on that ledger as well for taking a cut of the profits. And so he sends the leader of the Copperheads after Marlow. She is tortured, and she is saved by her father using the onyx blade, and he just completely destroys everyone that is there. So Marlow realizes two things at this point. First of all, he has this very overwhelming need to protect people that he cares about, like his daughter. The second thing that she notices is that he is completely ruthless if he thinks he is doing the right thing for the greater good. So in brutally murdering all of those people that were criminals, it was for the greater good, so it's fine. And so she decides to kind of use some of that to her advantage. While all of this is happening, Adrius's father does succumb to his wounds and he passes away. Adrius is kind of not really sure how he feels about this, and Marlow in book 1 had found his mother. She was kind of kept in another location, and she was also under a compulsion charm to obey everything that her husband told her. Because her husband is now dead, that compulsion charm is like gone, and she can act of her own free will. So Marlow takes Adrius to see his mother, and in return, Adrius just waltzes in with Marlow's not dead mother, because we were pretty certain she was dead in book 1. She is very much alive and kind of gives these pitiful excuses that like, oh, I didn't want you to have to be on the run all the time, so I left you here. I didn't want my mistakes to haunt you. Just totally unbelievable, I think. And she offers to help destroy the grimoire, and what she does do is offer up her heart's desire instead of Marlow's, which we don't really find out what it is. My guess would be that it is either some sort of like hope that Marlow would forgive her or a chance at renewing their relationship, or maybe it has something to do with a relationship with Vale. I'm not really sure. And unless I missed it, I don't think it was explained in the book. So they have the ingredients, they're ready to cast the spell. Marlow begs her father, hey, I'm going on trial tomorrow. I know that they're going to convict me. You know they're going to convict me, even though you've been trying to spread rumors that Adrius was the one who killed his father. We all know how this is going to end. So I'm begging you, because I know you really did it. Please come and confess so that I can go free. And he said, he doesn't want to confess, of course, but he says, I'm going to fix everything. It's all going to be okay. So Marlow's on trial while her friends are kind of getting the last of the ingredients. They're getting everything ready to go to destroy this grimoire, and her father waltzes in, having already cast the spell, so he can now control time, space, like everything. So he tells the solicitor, walk and don't stop walking, which leads to him walking straight out of a window. And he also tells the 5 families to kneel. He tells them to go home and not do anything until he tells them to. And he also is able to get Marlow to confess that yes, they are trying to destroy the grimoire, and they are currently, everyone else is currently at Falcrest's library putting all the ingredients together. They're very close to succeeding. So he basically says, like, take me to the library, and this whole this rip in time and space opens up, and they both jump through and get to the library. They're able to complete the spell, but it does lead to a little bit of a scuffle between Marlow and Vale and Adrius, where Adrius is stabbed pretty fatally. And Marlow, again, is kind of faced with a choice, like, is this really such a bad thing if we're making the world a better place? Or should I destroy this grimoire? But I also know I can use it to save Adrius. And so at the last minute, she decides to heal him first and then destroy the grimoire, which then breaks the spell. And everything is I don't want to say back to normal, because it's not back to normal, but that nightmare has ended. So at the end of the story, Adrius says that he and his mother are going to go live with some friends in the country, and he really wants Marlow to come with him. But of course she says, my place is here in the marshes, in the slums with these people. I know I can do a lot of good here. This is where I need to be. So they part ways, and my heart broke. I thought that was going to be the end. Thank goodness there was an epilogue where they are writing letters to each other every single day. And 8 months later, Adrius comes back and says that he has another curse that he needs her to break, and it's that he is constantly yearning after the same girl. And so I think they're together at the end. I'm going to say, yeah, they are, because I can't handle anything else. This is a series that definitely a duology worked well for. I don't really think we needed a third book. Now, if the author wanted to continue building in this world, I would certainly read more of it, but it seems like there was enough to quickly wrap up Marlow and Adrius's story in 2 books. I think my only complaint about this book was the bit about Marlow's mother. There was a lot about her in the first book because Marlow was really struggling with the fact that she was left behind. And then she was able to see somebody's memory of her mother seemingly drowning. And then Adrius just, it's like he walked into town and was like, oh, hey, there you are. Like, there's no explanation about how he found her. I mean, I know he's very wealthy, so he could have used a lot of money and resources to find her, but there's no explanation of where she was. She kind of comes in and says like, yeah, I'll help. Oh, I'm sorry I left you, by the way. I just didn't want you to get drug into this, you know. But I'm not really sorry for what I did. She's kind of not remorseful at all. And then she just kind of says oh, use my heart's desire. It's not a big deal. And then she leaves again. So I was kind of disappointed. Honestly, I think it would have been better if she had just stayed dead and not been a part of the story. But I think that's my only complaint about it. Everything else I really enjoyed. So if you've read Garden of the Curse, definitely check out Masquerade of the Heart once it is released. If you haven't read them, I highly recommend them. They're a good fun. They're pretty quick books, so they're easy to read. It's a fun fantasy romance story. But that is the end of this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.